people get weirdly tribal about fasted exercise. Like eating a banana before cardio makes you soft. Or training on an empty stomach makes you some ancient desert predator with cheekbones and discipline. Cute story. Biology is less dramatic. After 8 to 10 hours without food, your body is not sitting there helpless, clutching a little breakfast receipt, waiting for permission to move. It still has stored fuel. Liver glycogen is lower than it was after dinner. Muscle glycogen is usually still there. Insulin is lower. Fatty acids are more available. So when you start exercising fasted, the body tends to shift a bigger slice of its energy allocation toward fat oxidation, especially at lower to moderate intensities. That part is real. Not magical. Real. The problem is the fitness internet turns that one physiological detail into a whole identity parade. Fasted tribe versus fed tribe. Autonomy versus you are doing it wrong. But your metabolism does not care about your little gym faction. It cares about ATP. It cares about intensity. It cares about duration. It cares about what fuel is easiest to access without turning the whole system into a burning restaurant. Evolutionarily, humans were not designed around perfect pre-workout muffins. Movement after not eating was normal. Walking, hunting, carrying things, escaping nonsense, doing human admin without a protein bar every 47 minutes. So fasted training is not automatically dangerous. It is also not automatically superior. It is simply a different internal baseline. Less incoming glucose, lower insulin, more reliance on stored fuel, a small hormonal push toward mobilizing fat. And that comparison matters because fat oxidation during a workout is not the same thing as total fat loss across the week. That is where people start lying to themselves with confidence. Here's where the dopamine gets annoying. You do fasted cardio once, you sweat, you feel light. Maybe the scale drops the next morning because you ate less, stored less water, or emptied the system a little. And your brain goes, ah yes, science has chosen me. That is reinforcement, not proof, just reinforcement. The reward is intermittent, which makes it even stickier. Sometimes fasted training feels amazing. Sometimes it feels like trying to run errands with a dead phone and a bad attitude. That inconsistency is exactly why people get hooked on interpreting every session like a prophecy. Physiologically, the fasted state can increase catecholamines like epinephrine and norepinephrine. Those hormones help release stored fatty acids into circulation. So at easy to moderate effort, yes, the body may burn more fat during that session. But once intensity climbs, the body becomes much less sentimental. Hard intervals, heavy lifting, long demanding sessions. Those lean harder on carbohydrate availability because carbohydrate is faster fuel. The engine wants speed, not aesthetic purity. So if performance drops while fasted, that is not weakness. That is substrate selection getting real. Power output may fall, training volume may shrink, perceived effort may climb. And if the workout quality drops enough, the extra fat burned during the session can become a very expensive little trophy. Because the day still exists afterward. Appetite can rise. Movement later can decrease. Calories can quietly come back through the side door wearing a hoodie. This is why fasted exercise can raise fat oxidation acutely without guaranteeing greater total fat loss. The body loves compensation. It is petty like that. Then there is the muscle panic. People hear fasted and immediately picture their biceps being repossessed. Calm down. For most people doing normal sessions after an overnight fast, the body is not instantly chewing through muscle like a raccoon in a pantry. There can be slightly higher amino acid use when carbohydrate availability is lower, especially during longer or harder endurance work. But muscle preservation is not decided by one empty stomach workout. It is decided by the bigger pattern. Total protein, total calories, training stimulus, recovery. And what happens after the session? This is where the comparison gets more useful than the drama. Fasted training may improve the body's ability to use fat during exercise. It may support certain insulin sensitivity signals, especially because muscle contraction itself helps move glucose into muscle independent of insulin. That part is legitimately interesting. But it does not mean fasted training is a universal upgrade. It is a resource allocation trade. Some people feel sharp and steady, some feel flat, shaky, irritable, and spiritually opposed to treadmills. Both reactions make sense. Personality even plays a role. The high autonomy person may like the clean boundary of training before the day starts touching them. No breakfast decisions, no stomach drama, no social negotiation with a blender. Just shoes, movement, silence. Someone more performance-driven may hate it because the output feels capped. Neither person is morally superior. They are just running different internal economies. One values simplicity and consistency, the other values force production and session quality. That is the actual framework. Not fasted burns fat versus fasted kills gains. More like, what fuel is being used during the session? What happens to total energy intake later? Whether performance stays high enough to matter. Whether muscle is protected by the larger nutrition pattern, and whether insulin sensitivity improves. Less religion, more physiology. And then there is the story people attach to it. Because exercise is never just exercise once the internet gets its sticky little hands on it. Suddenly, fasted training becomes a character trait. The clean person, the disciplined person, the I don't need breakfast because I have willpower and possibly unresolved issues person. And that is where physiology quietly leaves the room and narrative psychology walks in wearing sneakers. Some people do not just like fasted exercise, they like what it means. It feels clean, it feels controlled. It feels like starting the day before the world begins asking for pieces of them. That matters. Because a routine is not only fuel and hormones, it is also meaning. If training fasted makes someone feel less cluttered, less bloated, less dragged around by food timing, that can create better adherence. And adherence is the boring little goblin that beats almost every flashy strategy eventually. But there is a shadow side. When people become spectators of their own body, they start treating every sensation like a comment section. A little hunger means fat loss, a bad workout means failure. A lighter morning weigh-in means victory. A tired leg means the body is detoxing.
That is passive interpretation. Parasocial fitness culture makes it worse.
People borrow someone else's body narrative and shove it onto their own metabolism like a jacket that does not fit. A shredded influencer trains fasted, so now fasted training becomes the sacred ritual. Never mind their total calories, their genetics, their sleep, their training age. Their supplement cabinet that looks like a small pharmacy having a nervous breakdown. The more useful comparison is active participation. Not watching the body like a reality show, actually noticing what the system does. Does output stay strong? Does mood stay stable? Does hunger rebound later like a raccoon kicked out of a trash can? Does the person move less for the rest of the day because the morning workout quietly stole their battery? That is where flow enters the picture. Some people reach a clean, focused rhythm when fasted. No digestive noise, no breakfast heaviness, no internal committee meeting about oats. They move, breathe, settle in, and the session becomes smoother because the context is simple. Others cannot enter that state at all.
Their brain keeps yelling about fuel. Their legs feel like rented furniture.
Their nervous system is technically present but emotionally filing a complaint. For them, eating before training may create better absorption into the work. Better power, better coordination, better patience with reality. So the question is not which version sounds more heroic. The question is which internal condition lets the body produce the experience that actually supports training. Fasted exercise is not a secret fat loss tunnel. It is not muscle destruction cosplay. It is not moral purity with cardio shoes. It is a physiological state with trade-offs. Lower insulin, higher fat availability, potentially higher fat oxidation during easier work. Possible performance costs when intensity demands faster fuel. Possible appetite compensation later. Potential insulin sensitivity. Benefits through the combined effect of muscle contraction, energy use, and repeated training exposure. That is the whole picture, annoyingly less sexy, much more useful. And there is room for different nervous systems here. Some people like structure before stimulation. Some people need fuel before effort. Some people feel autonomous when the morning stays simple. Some feel trapped when their body is asked to perform on an empty tank. None of that is a personality defect. It is biological variation meeting real-life context.
The body is not trying to be impressive. It is trying to allocate resources without making the organism regret having hobbies.
So fasted training can be a tool, fed training can be a tool. The deciding factor is not the mythology. It is whether fat loss, performance, muscle preservation, recovery, and insulin sensitivity all make sense. Not one sweaty morning, the whole pattern. That is where the noise dies down. And the body finally gets interpreted like a living system instead of a motivational poster with abs.